the call to fullness of life. One of the great difficulties about learning to meditate is that it is so simple. And in our society, most people think that only very complex things are worthwhile. And to meditate, you have to learn to be simple. And that provides a real challenge for all of us. The simplicity that's involved in learning to meditate is turning away from multiplicity, turning away from all the options that are there, and concentrating in utter simplicity of being. If you think of learning to ride a bike, to learn to ride a bike, you have to balance yourself on the bike. And to begin with, you have to concentrate on balancing. And the extraordinary thing is that as you do devote all your energies to being balanced, you discover a harmony and a new freedom. And the same is true with meditation. But like learning to ride the bike, you have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to concentrate. And you have to learn to direct all your energies to the simple task of being balanced and being at one. And so to be on the way in meditation, you have to be simple enough to turn aside from everything else so that you can be at one. Meditation is openness to a reality that we can only discover, only encounter in the depths of our own being. And so we have to learn to be silent and to be profoundly silent. And the extraordinary thing is that in spite of all the distraction of the modern world, the extraordinary thing is that this silence is perfectly possible for all of us. We have to devote time, energy, and perhaps love. And the first thing you have to understand about meditating is that you have to devote the time to it. And it's necessary to meditate every morning and every evening. The minimum amount of time, probably about 20 minutes. And I recommend you, gently as you can, to extend that to about a half an hour. Now let me just repeat to you what is to be done in that time. Sit down, and when we go to meditate in a moment or two, spend a couple of moments to sit comfortably, and the one essential rule of posture is to have your spine upright. And then, close your eyes and begin to recite interiorly, in silence, your word. And the word I recommend you to recite is Maranatha. And you recite it something like this: Maranatha. And the art of meditating is to learn to recite your word from the beginning of your meditation to the end. Maranatha. I couldn't overemphasize to you how important that is. And what I would suggest to you is this: that whatever you hear or whatever you read, don't be deflected from the path of saying your word, your mantra, from the beginning to the end. You sound it silently in your own heart. And it's the sounding of the word interiorly that opens up for us levels of awareness that are not possible outside this depth of silence. Now, I say that meditation is a learning process. But most learning processes that we're familiar with are learning processes in which we are learning to do something. Meditation is not learning to do, it's learning to be. It's learning to be yourself, to enter into your own being. We have to understand this very, very carefully. Another way of putting the same thing would be to say, meditation is learning to accept the gift of your own being, of your own creation, and to be in harmony with your own being, to be in harmony with your own creation, and to be in harmony with all creation, and to be in harmony with the Creator. And so the one thing you learn in meditation is the priority of being over action. And indeed, no action has any meaning or any depth of meaning unless it springs from being, from the depths of your own being. And that's why meditation is a way that leads us away from shallowness to depth, to profundity. And learning to be is learning to begin to live out of the fullness of life that is our invitation. It's learning to begin to be a full person. And the astonishing thing about the Christian revelation is that as we live our lives, as we live out the consequences of our own creation, we are not, as it were, exhausting a limited supply of life that we received at our birth. What we know from the teaching of Jesus is that we become filled with life when we become at one with the source of our being. Entering fully into union with our Creator, the one who is, the God who describes himself as I am. And the art of living our lives as full human beings, is the art of living out of the eternal newness of our origin, living fully from our center, from our spirit. Our spirit springing from the creative hand of God. The terrible thing about so much modern living is that it can be so shallow, can live without recognizing the depths and the possibilities that are there for each of us. If only we will take the time and undertake the discipline of every morning and every evening sitting down to meditate, and during that meditation saying our word from the beginning to the end. And in the Christian vision, we are being led to this source of our being by our guide. And our guide is Jesus, the fully realized man, the man wholly open to God. Now, as we meditate each day, we may not recognize our guide as we travel. And that's why the Christian journey is always a journey of faith. But as we approach the center of our being, as we enter our heart, this is the invitation. We find that we are greeted by our guide, greeted by the one who leads us. We're greeted by the person who calls every one of us into fullness of being. Now, the consequences, the results of meditation are this fullness of life, harmony, oneness, and energy, a divine energy that we find in our own heart, in our own spirit. And that energy is the energy of all creation. As Jesus tells us, it is the energy that is love. The vision is a staggering vision, and we have to learn, as I say, to be simple, to be humble as we approach it. And the simplicity and the humility we learn by saying our word from beginning to end. In patience, in faithfulness, with courage, and with love. Listen again to the words of St. Paul writing to the Philippians. I count everything so much garbage for the sake of gaining Christ and finding myself incorporate in Him. All I care for is to know Christ and to experience the power of His resurrection and to share His sufferings in growing conformity with His death, if only I may finally arrive at the resurrection from the dead. For He will transfigure the body belonging to our humble state and give it a form like that of His own resplendent body, by the very power which enables Him to make all things subject to Himself. Therefore, my friends, beloved friends, whom I long for, my joy, my crown, stand firm in the Lord. That's what meditation summons us to experience in our own spirit the power of the resurrection of Jesus.